to the saints, the church gets to say this: you do belong to Jesus. You do belong to Jesus. That means of grace through which the church does that is called the sacraments. The word comes from Latin, sacramentum, which has the connotations of a pledge or an oath or a promise. The sacraments are Jesus' way of affirming that we belong to Him. I'll give you one killer sentence from Michael Horton's book. It says this: so great is God's love and care for His people that He not only calls them into fellowship, belonging with His Son by the Word, He assures them of His good will, binding Himself to them and them to Himself through the sacraments that He has personally instituted. Oh, there it is. The church administers the sacraments to her people. These simple, beautiful, tangible signs and seals. And here's what they say: yes, you do belong to Jesus. We call these ordinances of the church. Fancy language. Here's why. 1, Jesus ordered or ordained that we do them. And 2, again, Jesus gave the right, the authority to administer them to His apostles and by extension to His church. One of these sacraments is baptism. We already heard that embedded in the text that we've read. It's right there in the Great Commission itself, isn't it? I command you to go make disciples, baptizing. And so, that's what we do. When someone hears the word and comes alive and comes to repentance and faith, what do? We get the church together. We get the pastors of the church, the authorities that Jesus has given us as a congregation, and we sacrament them. We baptize them in water. What are we saying when we baptize someone in water? It's amazing. You do belong to Jesus. And the second sacrament is Jesus' table, instituted personally in love by Jesus when He was eating His last meal. With who? With His apostles, His baby church. Baptism is the one-time sacrament, one-shot deal. And for the rest of our lives, we get to look back to the tub or the sprinkling or however it was that you got wet and look at that baptism and say to the world and the flesh and the devil, I will not believe your lies. Look, I belong to Jesus. I've been baptized into His death and His resurrection. But that's not the only sacrament that Jesus gave us, because He knows that we are weak and He knows that we need to be affirmed in that over and over and over in real time throughout our lives. And so Jesus gave us an ongoing means of grace. It's a standing invitation to His table, to gather together as His people, to share a meal with Him, to eat bread and drink cup and remember the great salvation that He has worked for us. And every time a pastor, an ecclesiastical authority, an under-shepherd to Jesus, at the gathering of the saints, invites you to come, take the bread, take the cup, remember Jesus, receive His grace. Do you know what that pastor is saying to you over and over and over again every week of your life? You do belong to Jesus. You still belong to Jesus. You will always belong to Jesus.